For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's going on? Happy Tuesday, everybody, as we welcome you into Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network, alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. We're live in downtown Las Vegas, a Circa Resort and Casino. Lots to get to over the course of the next 2 hours. And as I am trying to start my day here, JVT, I'm excited about the conference finals games that we have getting underway tonight. I get one of those text messages that is informing me of my unpaid tolls, and that if I don't pay them by tomorrow, the DMV is going to suspend my vehicle and my license and all of this stuff. These scams are getting out of hand.
Usually when I get those, I respond, try it.
You do?
Yeah, I try to poke the bear.
Are you the person that answers the spam phone calls just to like talk trash to people back?
No, so okay, here's the thing. Not the spam phone calls, but I think I've told this before, but to let people in. So I am somebody that when going through school, both high school and then post-high school career, I took a lot of jobs. I used to be, for about like 5 or 6 months, a telemarketer, political caller.
No
person.
way.
Yeah, it was like my uncle's company. Like I needed a job in between jobs for a while, and so I was the guy that would call you and do political surveys and all those things. So long story short, I actually answer those because I know what that life is like, and it is not a fun life. So I will answer those and actually answer questions. But generally with political calls, the loophole is they'll ask you if you work in media, you say yes, and then you can't answer any questions, and then you can just hang up.
But more often than not, those are actual like genuine survey-style questions versus
so the scams,
just
I don't really do anything, but
correct.
I will answer your political calls, so call me.
The scams just drive me insane, and that they're getting more and more, like, they're really good. A lot of the email ones catch people off guard, and they give their bank information, or on the phone they'll act posing as Wells Fargo saying, did you make this charge? They have access to certain things, and so I feel bad. A lot of people get got. But I'm not getting got by the DMV fakers today. Not today.
I don't feel bad if you're stupid. I apologize. Like, come on now.
Well, some lighter-hearted things to get to over the course of the show. If you would, producer Brian Ortega, please hit us with the rundown. What we got on deck today?
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
So one of the many NFL owners' meetings are going on this week, and a vote is expected to pass today for the NFL players to be allowed to participate in flag football for the Olympics. The tush push is going to get voted on, apparently, in a revised angle on that. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out of these meetings.
Yeah, the tush push is obviously going to be the center of attention. I'm very curious to see. I think it was 8 to 10 delegates, owners that get to flip. I don't know if you can do that in between the last few meetings. I also think you're just wimps if you're voting for this to get banned. So I'll be very curious to see what is going to happen there, whether or not. I mean, it's going to be the talk. But either way, look, you're coming off a year in which the tush push was actually statistically its least effective, and I don't know if it's really that big of a deal. From a betting perspective, it doesn't really do much for you.
I also yes, I think that it's a silly thing that we've had to have this conversation continually. I also am glad, at least, that the argument about the potential injuries has died down now that info has been screamed from the mountaintops that there have been zero injuries thus far that have come out of the tush push.
I don't know if you know this, Stormy, but football is a physical sport. And maybe there's other aspects of the game you should start to address if injuries are a concern.
Well, my biggest thing is, sure, add another game. Why not?
Correct.
Give us another full car crash, but get rid of the tush push. It's the worst. So that's one of our top 3 items that we're going to hit on today. Number 2, of course, conference finals. Need to know information. We got 2 games on deck today, one in the NBA, one in the NHL. Also, later on this hour, we will have Shane Hnidy, former NHL player, current analyst, doing great work, yes, with the Vegas Golden Knights here in town, but also calling national games on TNT. He saw this Florida team up close and personal, so get his thoughts on Kane's Panthers tonight.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to him and his perspective on my disrespected Carolina Hurricanes and whether or not they deserve to be favored in this series. I would say yes. I wonder if Shane would agree.
And also in the NBA, we're going to take a deeper dive into some series prop angles. You gave out one yesterday, but there's a lot of different names that we could get involved with.
Yeah, so series leaders, points, rebounds, assists, 3-point makes. It's very fun markets to track, to follow, to bet. And we're also seeing on the game one line a little bit of action from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yep. So we'll see if that holds, as they're now down to 7-point underdogs there today.
And last but certainly not least, because it's where we're going to kick things off today in Major League Baseball.
Isn't this great, by the way?
What?
Are the Cardinals for real? The topic we're leading off with. You smell that? We are in the summer months, opening a show with baseball. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm sitting here watching Cal and Miami get into it. Cal's beating the crap out of Miami. They're up like 10-0, and the Hurricane players getting pissed about like Cal Rick at a double or whatever it is. Oh, baseball, summer. It's absolutely fantastic.
Things are happening.
Let's open up with some baseball.
Well, we didn't have any conference finals games yesterday. We're going to be deep diving previews for today and tomorrow throughout the course of the entire show. So, yeah, let's get started with a little bit of baseball. And what is going on with the St. Louis Cardinals? Put up 11 runs on the AL leading Detroit Tigers yesterday, an 11-4 home win. They are 13-2 since May 1st, 17-6 since April 25th. Best record in the NL in that time. Starters giving up 2 or fewer runs in 11 of their last 12.
Yeah, I think to answer the question, I think that they are for real in the sense that they can be a playoff team. Like you look across the board at some of the metrics for this team, and a lot of stuff like passes the smell test. You know, we always talk about, for example, lineups and whether or not a team is signed up for regression, if they're like really hitting, really getting lucky on balls in play and whatnot. Interestingly enough, these are actually the two teams that lead the league 1 and 2 in terms of batting average on balls in play. But it's not like astronomical, so maybe there's room for a step back, but it's not anything crazy. There's some pretty solid depth to this lineup. My guy and the best name in baseball, Lars Nootbaar, leading the way for the St. Louis Cardinals, who have, I think, like some pretty decent signs to say that they're kind of a playoff team and can potentially win this division and steal it away from, I think, everybody's preseason darling, the Chicago Cubs. So I would say, in the sense of them being a legitimate playoff team, yes, they are real. You mentioned the pitching staff as well. Really across the board, some pretty solid numbers for this crew if they're going to stay healthy. So, and that's in the underlying metrics as well. So I think the answer to that question is, yeah. Now, are you asking, can they win the World Series? That's where I'd kind of push back a little bit. But this seems to be a team that has the potential to make the playoffs, win a division, and I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, the only thing that's gone wrong, I mean, I don't even want to say wrong, but with the pitching to this point has been their K rate isn't great. But overall, 8th ERA in the majors, had a 2.33 earned run average from May 4th to 17th. And back in action today against the Tigers, who are big $2 road favorite in Game 2 of this set. Skubal on the hill, taking on Eric Fetty there, and we'll preview all 15 games on the Major League Baseball slate tonight. But I was just looking through the Cardinals schedule real quickly, and like, yes, on this hot streak they had sweeps of the Pirates and Nationals, but they also had wins over the Phillies, Mets, and Royals, and just beat the Tigers.
Eric Fetty of
the San Diego State University?
No, I don't know. Las Vegas.
Oh, he was UNLV. Oh my gosh, no, I'm thinking
he was a hustling rebel.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I did know that. I was getting my my what's his name? Why am I blanking on his name?
I don't know. I'm blanking on your blank right now. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was thinking, for whatever reason, we're going to go blank.
Kawhi Leonard.
No, it's stupid that I was thinking this, but I was thinking Steven Strasburg. And I was thinking from like way back in the day. Any hooser. What's going on with the Dodgers?
I often confuse Steven Strasburg.
We're just starting things off bad. I got thrown off by the DMV thing, and now here we are. Dodgers losing 4 straight now. Because we thought maybe this is just like, hey, okay, something weird happened against the Angels, but now they've lost 4 in a row. Don't give me that look.
It's weird.
They've lost 4 in a row against the Angels and are 6-9 since May 4th.
What are we talking about? There's a team in LA that's won 4 straight.
Oh, goodness.
What are we talking about?
Here we go.
No, look. Like, if you look at it for the Dodgers, look, baseball season's long. I don't think like we're freaking out too much. But I will say, I mean, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. You can only just continue to put guys on the injured list in terms of pitching before you start to feel some of that when it comes to the results. The big moment over the weekend is when Clayton Kershaw comes back. All right, great. He didn't really look that good. And then yesterday they're committing errors and screwing themselves over with the way they're playing defensively too. So I would say it's a blip on the radar. I think the Dodgers can still be the Dodgers for the most part of what we expect. But I will say, look, I think it's pretty interesting that today, for example, trying to snap this losing streak, you send out Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who we have discussed at length here on this show, as showing some cracks in the armor of being like somewhat average as opposed to elite. And you're priced really high against a team that absolutely smacked around Yoshinobu Yamamoto in his previous start, prior, I should say, because that was a great game. But regardless, it's not the best position to be in if you're in the Dodgers because you're not playing particularly well. Your defense hasn't been playing well, especially last night. And now you get a Diamondbacks team that can at least hit the crap out of the ball. Very interesting to see if maybe this continues here today. But I don't think I'm freaking out big picture. But this series, come on now.
Okay. My bets were up and down yesterday in Major League Baseball. I do want to continue to fade the Orioles. I saw that yesterday, even though the Brewers, I thought they had it lost there for a moment, but they came back. So the run line doesn't cover, but the money line play that we did, the run line was just an extra sprinkle because it was so high on the reverse number. Mets fall yesterday too. Tough loss for the Giants. Robbie Ray had an outstanding day.
Yeah,
and then the Giants bullpen is the best in baseball, and they couldn't come through.
Yeah, it's funny, the Robbie Ray thing, I was wrong, right? Like, one of the things that the metrics were kind of pointing out early was that Ray was going to be a guy that potentially was due for a letdown, and yet he continues to pitch well, and now his numbers are really tightening up across the board, and it seems like what we're seeing is pretty legitimate here. Strikeout rate's down for what we have seen throughout his career, but everything else is pretty great. And like you said, look, against a Royals lineup, maybe I'm just reading too much into it because the Royals lineup kind of stinks if you look at all the metrics. Maybe Robbie Ray will fall back down to earth at some point. But the dude's been wildly impressive, but you do need run support at some point. But that, to me, was a big takeaway, is the Ray performance here so far seems to have some validity to it for a Giants team that does have some pretty strong pitching. So let's see if the offense can start to do its thing here now, too.
And we'll get more baseball a little bit later on in the show today. Adam Burke back in his usual Tuesday spot. I know he was giving us grief last week about him moving to Wednesday, but hopefully, he'll be approving of us this time around. The Rockies also, by the way, lost another game on Monday.
Did you fade them? Did you continue your quest here? You hate the Rockies.
I didn't have anything I wanted to parlay them with enough yesterday, because you can't just more often than not, you can't just stand alone fade the Rockies in a solo bet. You got to pair it with something else. Yeah, I guess if you're doing run lines or extended run lines, because half the time when they're facing these guys, it's the 2.5 number instead of 1.5.
In theory, if they're so bad, right? Like, we get into this thing where it's like, I can't lay prices. Why not? If there's value in it, there's value in it.
I do it more often than not, but it's not an every single day thing, but more often than not. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, our first look at the NBA and NHL Conference Finals matchups that are coming up this evening. Stick around. More Money Moves after this.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Both the NBA and NHL Conference Finals getting underway officially tonight as we welcome you back into Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. JVT, Stormy, Buonantony with you. Let's start in the NBA, where the OKC Thunder, who are your odds-on NBA title favorites, are a pretty sizable favorite today in Game 1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Laying 7 as the consensus number across the board right now, but the 7.5 was up there when we were talking about this game yesterday. Total has also moved way up, was as low as 213.5, and we're seeing largely 217s now, JVT.
Yeah, I don't think I'm too surprised by that. One would assume that if the Oklahoma City Thunder are fatigued, tired, whatever it is from playing a 7th game in a series, generally fatigue manifests itself both in a second half and also on defense, right? You're not going to defend as hard, but you're going to save your energy for offense. So it does make some sense that this thing would move up. I do think there's certain things that the other team can do to one another that's going to allow this thing to get going in terms of scoring. For example, if the Thunder are going to have some success here, it's going to be by forcing turnovers. Minnesota does commit a lot of turnovers. Those turnovers lead to fast break opportunities. Those are quick points, right? So you can get those scores really quickly, go on runs pretty quickly. So I think it makes some sense that we're starting to move over. And I think it makes some sense that the Timberwolves are starting to get support here. Like, it's 7 across the board right now. The 7.5s are disappearing. A couple offshore shops opened at 8. But I think that given the situation, coming off of a Game 7, but also the fact that I think that OKC, as somebody who called it the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Invitational, I do believe they deserve to be downgraded a little bit here. And so I think it's fair to put this down. I mean, look, this might be too simplistic, but we'll make this case anyway. Minnesota being power rated identically to an injured Denver team, I think is a little off, right? I mean, this is the exact same number OKC was laying in Game 7 against Denver, and that was Aaron Gordon on one leg. So what are we doing here with Minnesota? I believe that there should probably be a little bit of a tighter number here.
You have mentioned a couple times the rest versus rust element here. OKC obviously coming off what was a long 7-game series. And I would say, I think it's fair to say, an unexpected 7-game series, the way that Denver started that series. But meanwhile, Minnesota had last 5 days to chill out and get prepared for this game. And so it's just kind of a matter of which side of that you like. The team that finished on a high note and dominated the way that they did, but to your point, against an injured Denver team, or the team that's well rested and kind of preparing for the moment. Zach Cohen, I was reading his full write-up because on VSiN.com right now, JVT did the Eastern Conference, Zach Cohen did the Western Conference. He has a breakdown not only of the series in its entirety and different series prop angles, but a breakdown of Game 1 today. And my big takeaway from reading it was that he believes it's going to be competitive and that, in his words, Minnesota has the tools required to disrupt Oklahoma City. Specifically tonight, though, he really likes taking the points in this one.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, I think, fascinating matchups here. What's going to be interesting is Zach, in his series preview, did mention the thing that we talked about yesterday, 30-6, the record for Minnesota in the last 36 games with Julius Randle on the floor. That's what I'm going to be curious about is how does OKC defend Julius Randle? What direction do they decide to go? Do they decide to start with their double bigs like Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein? Do they elect to go a little bit smaller? What's going to be pretty interesting, Stormy, is I think there is this groupthink going on for this series, and it generates from a groupthink thought of Rudy Gobert, right? So what I mean by that is you hear a lot of general analysis of, I don't know about this series for Rudy Gobert. Oklahoma can play small. And everybody keeps going back to the series where he played with the Jazz, where they were played off the floor, the Jazz were, because Rudy Gobert was forced to put out a whole bunch of fires. That Jazz team stunk on defense everywhere around him. This is not the same for Minnesota. They can afford to play big and keep Rudy Gobert out there. He's not going to be scampering around because these guys are getting beat off the dribble by a bunch of the OKC Thunder players. So in other words, I think Rudy Gobert is going to have a pretty big series. I think there actually might be some value in playing some Rudy Gobert stuff when you're talking about the way the market is getting priced. We'll get into some of those series leaders too as well. But I think the size of Minnesota is kind of being downplayed to an extent. I don't think they're going to be forced to match what OKC wants to do. I think OKC might be forced to match what the Timberwolves want to do.
Okay. With Gobert, is there anything specifically prop-wise tonight you had any interest in? His points sitting at over under 8.5, minus 110 each way on that one. Any of those other angles, rebounds, assists?
Yeah, I think you're going to go rebounds, right? I think that's going to be the interesting the prop
10
here
plus
for him.
is the number, minus 105.
Yeah, like that seems like a pretty fair number to go and look at here for Rudy Gobert. Because, again, I don't think he's getting played off the floor. And I think that's a general thought. I think that's kind of watering down the market on him a little bit here overall. I think you can even make the case, even though he is, I think he's still a pretty heavy favorite to do so. I'll double check. But in terms of rebounds leader for this series as well, like he's only minus 160. Again, you kind of hear this thought of like, well, if he gets played off the floor, again, I don't think that's the case, and I think he's going to be able to dominate. I think the Thunder are going to try to play small, and I think that's going to open him up. Remember the end of the series against the Lakers, where the Lakers were playing small, and it's like the Timberwolves realized, oh, no, we've got this giant 7-foot dude. Let's let him get offensive rebounds. Let's let him get putbacks. Let's let him get lobs. Let's let him dominate within 4 feet. I think he's proven, and the Timberwolves have proven, that they can handle smaller lineups. So I think that's really going to play and manifest throughout the course of the series. Maybe it starts here, or maybe it doesn't happen until a little bit later. But that, I think, is going to be a pretty interesting facet, not only of this game here, but overall. To ask the main 7-footer to just get you 10-plus rebounds at a minus 105 price, I think is a pretty cheap price, and I think that's part of the way the market has been playing this, and it's something I would disagree with in general for the series. Okay, and we'll dive deeper into those series-long props, by the way, for this series price. OKC, minus 330. The Timberwolves, plus 265 in the set. Looking at the VSiN.com bet splits right now, while the plus 7 is taking the majority of bets at circa 56%, DraftKings at 65% of the bets, 60% of handle. The public looks like on Minnesota, but the circa handle, 70% of the money laying that number.
with OKC. So just for inquiring minds, getting that out there. By the way, our bet split's always available at VSiN.com when you're a VSiN Pro subscriber. And right now, we're doing that special where instead of just the 12 months, we're giving you our discounted price of $199, but giving you 2 extra months, so 14 months of VSiN Pro access right now. VSiN.com/subscribe. You get those articles I was talking about with JVT, Zach Cohen, the bet splits, all the best bets, all of that good stuff. We also have
Keep telling Bill 80, man. We're just giving these things away.
Giving it away. Well, honestly, though, the betting guides, the fact that those are built into it is, I think, one of the best parts of everything that we do. And you said you'll be writing a bunch of that stuff coming up in the summer for the NFL and college football.
Right.
We'll get to college football and NFL later, okay? We got
college
conference
football,
final
folks.
stuff.
College football. Yes, we will discuss college football.
I do have a college football item on
I
the
saw
show
that,
later.
and I was like, what? Where the hell did that come from? It's actually a thought I agree with. I was like, where
Really?
the hell did that come from?
Joel Klatt did his top 10 college football quarterbacks going into 2025 yesterday, and it kind of got my brain percolating a little bit.
Do you have to say who it is, but where was he ranked?
8.
Okay, all right.
He's ranked 8th.
Yeah.
But also tonight in the NHL, we have the Eastern Conference Final getting underway. Panthers, Hurricanes, Game 1. Florida, your defending Cup champs, a -125 series favorite. Carolina, +105. You think the Canes are underrated. Underrated.
Is
Regular
there like
season,
a Hurricanes chant or something? Can I get in on this?
They're...
What do they do?
I'll
have to look it up.
They
I'll
do
look
the
it up.
storm surge.
The most common chant is "Let's go Canes."
Let's go
All right,
Canes.
that's-
Their mascot's name is Stormy, so that's cool.
Okay.
Florida won 2
Yeah,
of
you
the
told me
3
that,
meetings in the regular season. Road team actually went 2-1 in those, under cash in each of the last 2. 4-1 to the under their last 5 meetings head to head. I do think this is going to be a lower scoring series. We saw that in the Canes last set, and I thought that was going to be the way of the world in Panthers Leafs, but we saw a lot more goals scored than I anticipated. One angle I do kind of like in this series, I'm curious your thoughts on. Any game to reach 2 overtime is 4-1. In 2023, when the Canes got swept in this series, we saw that 4 overtime marathon in one of the games. We got overtime twice in the series. Canes had a pair of 2 overtime games in round 1 this postseason, 1 last round. So I feel like these games are going to be closely contested. A lot of potential 1-goal games late in the third period. Why not see potential overtime and double overtime just once in the series?
Sure. I mean, these are
At that price, I think it's worthwhile for a fun one.
These are 2 defensive-oriented teams, right, that play relatively well. Off the top of your head, would you know, in terms of penalties, how these teams play? Because if they're 2 disciplined teams that also don't really give up a ton of power play opportunities, not in that just a penalty kill, but just being penalized in general, right?
Yeah, I'd have to look that up, to be honest.
You know what I'm saying? In general, if these are 2 relatively disciplined teams as well, getting into extra periods, less opportunity for penalties called, and then power plays that would end your overtime relatively early. Also, non-data point, non-metric thing, these just look like 2 teams that would play a double overtime game.
Right? It does. It gives that feel. So it's 4-1. I think that's just a fun prop that I wanted to play in this series. General angle for this game, I talked about it yesterday. I think I like Carolina to win Game 1. They're rested. Similarly, we're just talking about the NBA. Florida's coming off a long series with Toronto. Toronto just kept squeaking them out. I like Carolina tonight at a short -120 money line price, but I like the Panthers for the series. So I think if you're trying to approach it from that standpoint, you wait for tonight to come through and then see if you can get a better series price number on Florida.
Can I note that I did a little research. My favorite thing that apparently Hurricane fans do at home is when there is a scrum along the boards, they do mine, like the seagulls from Finding Nemo. It's pretty good. That's a pretty good chant.
Okay.
No, that's great. You don't get the reference, do you?
I do. Yes, I've seen Finding Nemo.
That's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
We're going to take a quick timeout.
Canes in 5.
When we come back, NBA series leaders for both of the respective Eastern and Western Conference Finals. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Betting on sports? Well, you're listening to us, so I know the answer is yes. And if you are, why haven't you checked out the races yet? First Bet lets you wager on hundreds of horse races every day from top tracks around the U.S. and across the world. Sign up at firstbet.com today. That's the number 1, stbet.com. And use our promo code VSiN200. That'll help you claim a 20% rebate your first 60 days up to $200. Try it out today at firstbet.com. Stormy Buonantony, JVT with you back here on Money Moves. Have looked into the numbers for you for penalty minutes, and you will be happy to know the Florida Panthers, most penalized team in the NHL this year.
Okay, all right, there we go.
And even in the postseason right now, they're like top 2. So, but they have one of the top penalty kills in the league. So
they're a bunch of thugs, and my honorable Hurricanes will have to deal with that throughout the course of this series.
They and Carolina, top 2 penalty kill percentages of the postseason so far. So, but that, again, plus top 2 goaltenders, all of this leads together. I like unders. I like overtimes. I think we're going to get a little spicy, have some fun.
So every game is going to be like 5-4. Every metric points, everything,
luck.
right? Everything points to this being a gritty, low-scoring series, even though you do think the Carolina Hurricanes are a bunch of soft Euros. You said that the other day. And then all of a sudden, it's just going to be like this magnificent shootout every single game.
Every game, and I'm going to hate life. Yeah. But it's all right. I'll be out of town for most of this series, so we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we can tell. We can tell. Stormy behind the scenes mentally checked out here.
I wouldn't say fully to that extent.
Tomorrow's your last day?
Yes, tomorrow's my last day.
We can tell.
That is not true. Just because I made one little Eric Fetty mix-up, okay? Let me live. Let's get into some of these NBA series props because you have been diving deep into the weeds. Do you want to start with OKC, Minnesota, since we already kind of got into it a little bit?
I mean, so I think there's a lot of interesting. So the series leader in every statistical category is always a fun market to dive into. What I'm interested in, so we talked a little bit about rebounds. To reiterate, I think this weird thing is happening where there's this thought that Rudy Gobert is going to get played off the floor, and thus I think the price on him to lead the series of rebounds is actually getting cheaper by the second. So I'm going to be very curious to see how the market is priced as the day goes along. I actually think minus 150 or so, it's a cheap price on Rudy Gobert to lead the series in rebounds. I don't think he is going to be played off of the floor. And I think that this is going to be a series which he could potentially thrive. One of the things OKC would like to potentially unlock is their small ball unit. Remember, we go back to that series against Denver and the fact that their small ball unit did a very good job throughout that series. To reiterate, one of the better statistics I saw coming out of that, games 4 through 6, Nikola Jokic, time of possession, his average was 6.5 minutes in terms of times of possession. Game 7, when you had tiny, minute Alex Caruso going up against him, his average time of possession was 3.8 minutes. They were doing a great job of fronting him, denying him the ball, all that sort of thing. But I don't think you're going to play Gobert off the floor. I think a lot of people think that's a thing. It's not, and it hasn't been. Generally, his minutes go up when you play in the postseason with him on your team. So I don't think that's the case. I think the market's kind of heading in that direction. So I think rebounds is somewhat cheap for Gobert. Okay. With the other market that I think is absolutely fascinating, Stormy, is three-point leader. Okay. Because Oklahoma City's shooting has completely disappeared for a second straight postseason. They've been awful. They're shooting about 32% from beyond the arc, and yet they are a team in the regular season that was one of the best. So I'm very curious to see here again, like, do we start to look at some of these guys like Lou Dort, for example, who a vast majority of his attempts are going to come from beyond the arc? What if all of a sudden the other side of the coin hits? What if the Thunder can finally hit shots from beyond the arc? What if Lou Dort finally starts to nail some of these threes and they start to wake up? I think there might be some value.
So you want to take a little 9-to-1 shot?
Yeah, like I think there might be because, again, I just find it so weird that we have now had 2 postseasons where the Thunder have fallen off of a cliff with their three-point shooting. But throughout the course of the regular season, they're one of the best ones. Mm-hmm. So we're getting this price like the Timberwolves are going to bomb them out. But remember, we all watched that series against the Golden State Warriors. They shot extremely poor in that series against the Golden State Warriors. The one thing that you and I kept bringing up was they got to pressure the rim. They're doing well at pressuring the rim. That's how you're going to beat Golden State. Get to the rim, get to the rim, get to the rim. And sure enough, over the course of the last 4 games of that series, they shot like 75% within 4 feet of the basket. And in the last game, they had 70 points in the paint against Golden State. So I think you're going to try to do that here if you're Minnesota. But it's not like all these guys have just been bombing away and shooting 40% from 3 themselves. So with more games at home over the course of a long series, where you would assume Lou Dort shoots a little bit better at home, I don't know, 9-1 to be the series leader in threes is, I think, pretty interesting.
Well, and even Anthony Edwards, minus 310 is the price in this one, and it's because of volume, but he missed a lot of them too. So, like, minus 310 seems a little bit aggressive. I understand it, but a little much. That's the same price, by the way, for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to have the most points in this series, and I think a lot of people do expect him specifically to tear it up, especially the way that he has handled this team in the regular season offensively, scoring 35 points points per game, but more than 50%, I think, for all of them. So that price, I think, is a little bit more warranted just based on, the 30-plus points on a nightly basis for this guy.
Yeah, so I don't – look, you're plugging your nose if you're going anywhere else, essentially, right? Because it seems extremely likely, especially if the Thunder are going to win this series, that Shea is going to lead them in total points. We will preface this by saying this is a long shot for a reason. But having said that, let's do Why Not Wednesday a little early. Why not Julius Randle at 30-1 to lead the series in points? Like, if you're going to take a long shot, if I could paint a picture for you, if you're Mark Dagnall, who would you rather have beat you in a series? Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle, right? And so, theoretically, there could be quite a few games where you're like, no, let's blitz Anthony Edwards. Let's throw doubles at him. Let's get the ball out of his hands. Let's make sure, or let's at least go down with, you know what? Let's see if Julius Randle can beat us. We don't really have like a pure physical match for Julius Randle, so that might burn us, but let's see what happens. Again, it's 30-1 for a reason. You're going to have to overcome Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but I do think there's a world in which Julius Randle has a very strong series from a scoring standpoint.
Well, and you've talked repeatedly about how important of a piece that he's been for this team, too. So, yes, if Anthony Edwards gets defended a little bit tighter and they're causing him more problems, and that could open the door for a guy like Julius Randle. Again, SGA is the number he is for a reason. You think that price is high? How about when you go to Knicks Pacers, Jalen Brunson minus 750. Karl Anthony Towns is your rebounds leader, $9. But you gave out yesterday on the show, and I've heard a lot of shows on VSiN kind of looking at your perspective of Josh Hart in that market being a very reasonable bet.
Yes, I think this is a really interesting one. I think Karl Anthony Towns deserves to be favored here. There's no question for total rebounds in the series. But if you go back to the regular season set between these two teams, in 3 games, Josh Hart had 30 rebounds. He actually had 10 in each one of the regular season games. He has played very well. He's also an elite rebounder for his position. Some of the numbers, when you look at Josh Hart, Hart himself, when you look at it, let's see, get the numbers here. 91st percentile in offensive rebounding rate at his position. He grabs 6% of his team's missed shots. One would think that's a small number. That's a really big number if you're talking about 6% of all missed shot attempts when you're on the floor. And in terms of defensive rebounding, grabs 20% of the rebounds available defensively. That's in the 100th percentile at his position. Hart's an elite rebounder for where he plays on the floor. The other part about this is we know what the weakness is for Karl Anthony Towns. Again, he deserves to be favored in this market. But Stormy, he also finds himself in foul trouble quite a bit. Mm-hmm. We have a large history that tells us that at times Cat will commit some stupid fouls. He will be riding the bench. And so a shallow team like the New York Knicks, you're going to have a lot of minutes for a guy like Hart, who plays a ton already as it is. Remember the series last year where I think it was a stretch where he played every minute for 2 straight games. He had run like 20 miles or whatever it was by the NBA tracking data through 2 games. He's going to be out there. One shot was off market at 9-1. But I still think at 5-1 or better, putting a little sprinkle on Hart to lead the series in rebounds is something worth playing. So.
Yeah, you made them take that off the board.
Yeah, well, it was just like, it was one where I don't think they kind of realized like what that was compared to everybody else. So, yeah, that got taken down pretty quickly.
The one market of, honestly, all of them for both of these games that seems the most wide open is total threes in Knicks Pacers.
Sure.
The pricing there. Tyrese Halliburton is your favorite, as well as Jalen Brunson tied at plus 220. So I feel like just from a number standpoint, there's a lot more option and potential parity for threes.
Yeah, so here's so this ties into what I wrote about here on the website too for the series, right? So let's go to Aaron Nesmith, for example. He is plus 550. He is ahead of Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, guys who, like, when you look at it from statistically, are very good three-point shooters. Nesmith has been a great shooter in the regular season, but he's shooting out of his gourd again here. I think a lot of people might be attracted to Andrew Nembhard at 30-1. But again, Nembhard shot 29% in the regular season, but he's shooting out of his gourd here in this postseason. Does that really continue? So this is really interesting, not only from the perspective you're talking about, but where it's priced. But as I talked about in the article, there are so many guys you can point to that are having like out of their mind shooting stretches in this postseason that if that regression hits really hard, might open the door for a couple of these New York Knicks to actually steal this market away.
So hit me with a few names that you like.
Cat seems interesting only because he has the ability, but he's kind of gone away from shooting a ton. Like the volume really isn't there. The usage is kind of down. I think you can make a strong case for a guy like an OG Anunoby type, right? Playing off ball, spacing out the floor. He's a pretty good shooter as well. Brunson's going to attract a ton of attention, and I think he might have the ability to kind of steal this one potentially as well.
Plus 550, the price there. Bet 100, win 550 back if OG Anunoby gets it done. But again, everybody in this market, plus 220 prices or better. We're going to step aside when we come back, shifting gears back to the NHL. Former NHL defenseman, TV analyst Shane Hnidy is going to join us next, get his perspective on Panthers Hurricanes, as well as who he likes best right now to win this year's Stanley Cup. We'll be right back.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Rolling along here, Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. JVT, Stormy Buonantony with you back on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM channel 158. Diving back into the NHL, we have the Eastern Conference Final getting underway later on tonight with Florida and Carolina. Tomorrow, the Western Conference will get started, Oilers and Stars. And to help us break it all down, excited to welcome in on the Progressive guest line, Shane Hnidy, former NHL defenseman, won a cup with the Boston Bruins in 11, now a TV analyst for the Vegas Golden Knights, as well as doing national games on TNT. Saw this Florida team up close and personal just this past week. Shane, how we doing? What's going on, friend?
I'm fantastic. Happy to join.
Yes, looking forward to it. And I actually want to start with the fact that you are a cup winner and what it takes to get all the way to the mountaintop and make it happen. Which one of these final four teams remaining, in your opinion, has that build and has that grit that you've seen so many times?
You know, it's interesting, right? It's hard to explain the intangibles when you're in a room and see it happen. You know, as long as I played there, it does take a special group. And I think you see it with the Florida Panthers. I think the Oilers have it because they can learn from experience going and getting knocked out. The Dallas Stars is a veteran team that's, you know, been there, lost. They've been, you know, 3 straight conference finals. They understand the clock is ticking. And I think Carolina's been good for so long under Rod Brindamore. So I wouldn't be surprised with any of these teams. You mentioned Florida. That's going to be an interesting series to me, how it starts tonight, them coming right off Game 7. Is it going to be that adrenaline rush, or is it going to be the rest of the Hurricanes? How's that going to play out? But it won't surprise me. I think all these teams, it's one of those years, none of them surprise me that they're in conference finals. And I wouldn't be surprised any of these teams coming out cup winners.
Stormy, Shane, is trying to avoid this conversation here. She believes Carolina to be soft.
No, I do not.
She believes the Hurricanes to not be ready for the moment. I believe Carolina to be heavily disrespected. They are underdogs in the series despite having home ice. What say you to Stormy's accusation of this team not being ready for this moment?
Not a fair depiction of what I said.
Well, I'm going to say I kind of agree with both. I did not see Carolina. If there was one team, maybe a little surprised, but at the same time, to me, and this isn't a slight, it's hard to win anything. I thought they had the easiest path to the conference final. New Jersey was battered, missing their best player, Jack Hughes. They didn't have a full lineup of defensemen. Kind of saw that series going. And I just think Washington, you know, they'd faltered near the end of the year. Kind of, it was playing. Once Ovi kind of got that, it seemed like that jam they needed kind of came out of their game. So, but that said, they're still a good team. It's a hard way to play. They're a hard man-on-man team. That's the way they play coverage. They force everything. They got great defensive sticks. I just think the teams that have played them haven't been able to get in and attack their D. And I think Florida is a team that is just relentless. Their top guys to their bottom guys all play the same way with the mentality of getting it in. You know, you really, when you see it up close, and they just want to, you know, wear down the opposition. But Carolina has the similar mentality with a different style. And, you know, anybody who gets there, you got to give them credit. So I give credit to Carolina. It'll be interesting how the man-on-man works. And if they do go to the final, how do they man-on-man against McDavid and Draisaitl? That is usually not the best way to defend 2 of the best players in the world, or a guy like Mikko Rantanen, say, at Dallas. So, Yeah, I'd say I was going to take Stormy's side. I'm going to favor to her a little bit, but at the same time, Carolina certainly has the ability, and that's why they play the games. We'll watch it. We can analyze it all we want, but they got to play the games to see what the result will be.
Exactly, Shane. And my thing was just looking back to 2 years ago, because JVT was talking about how dominant Carolina has been in these first two series, but you mentioned the injuries and the path that they have had. But 2 years ago, I feel like they were pretty darn good the first two rounds as well, and then they got swept by Florida in the conference finals. And they've kind of had this conference final kryptonite about them under Rod Brindamore, 12 straight games that they have lost now in the conference finals. And I just get a little bit concerned from that standpoint versus a Florida team that has shown the pedigree and has gotten there year after year. Let's shift gears, though, and go to the Western Conference. Obviously, Edmonton coming off the series win that they had against Vegas. They have gotten so much more from their depth so far in this postseason. How much has that surprised you, and can they keep it going?
I'll be the first to admit, at the beginning of the year, everybody kind of anointed the Oilers a team. I did not see it in regular season. And it's kind of interesting, and I'm one of the guys, and I know Stormy work together. I always say the regular season's a completely different animal. Wipe away everything that happened. It's a whole new season in playoffs. And I think this Oilers team is more built and suited for playoffs. You got Evander Kane back healthy, Trent Frederick, Connor Brown, the Kapanen who comes in, Hyman. They've got big bodies that play straight line. You've got to play straight line hockey, physical. Look at the Panthers who've been there, back-to-back seasons into the final, winning last year. I think the Oilers have taken a page. It is a bit of a copycat league, the NHL, when you see a team win their style. And I think the Oilers have adjusted their style to that. Corey Perry, another guy, that they're going to come after you. They're going to go to the net. They're going to play a hard game. And unless you can go after them, I thought the only weakness for the Oilers was you've got to get behind their D. You've got to force their D to make plays. They've got guys that can move the puck, but if they're under duress, that makes it a lot harder. So, this Oilers team, to me, and then, of course, what did they learn? They still have that gut-wrenching feeling of being so close last year. And you got two of the best players in the world, McDavid and Draisaitl, that seem to have bought in. They barely, their offense wasn't needed. So the depth has been key. That's what makes Edmonton really dangerous. I think Dallas, I still think, and if they're going to beat the Oilers, I don't think their best game has come out yet. They've got a lot of guys. Heiskanen and Robertson are back, but that series is really intriguing to me because, Dallas to me was kind of, I thought would be the favorite. I've watched them play. They got by Winnipeg, which was a really good team, but I still think they have another level they have to get to and will need to get to if they want to compete with Edmonton.
Shane, could they just get to that level by getting those guys back that you're referencing? Like, are we underselling Dallas just because they haven't been whole this whole time?
Well, they're whole now, right?
Yeah.
But whole, like Heiskanen now has got some games under his belt. He's a world-class defenseman. He's their best defenseman. They got through round one and half of round two without him. And same with Robertson, but Robertson hasn't scored. They're waiting for Duchesne, Sagan, Ben. None of those guys have goals. Rope Hintz. This is a 30-goal guy. Wyatt Johnson. None of them have really provided anything. It's been Mikko Rantanen, Thomas Harley. There's been different guys. If they're going to win, they need their depth to be better than Edmonton's depth, which, if you look at paper, you could say it is. But as we talked before, it's a reason they play the games to find out really who can be the best team there.
Shane, while Florida is a series favorite against Carolina, this Oilers star set is priced as a coin flip. Do you really see it that way? Do you think this is a series that could go the distance as well?
I do. I see this as definitely possibly a 7-game, which would, that's what you want to see. You want to see the best teams in. The margin for error between all these teams, you listen to coaches that have lost out, how hard it is to win. Even Paul Maurice talking about, they blew out Toronto, but the game's closer. There's moments in games, every moment matters. I think Scott Arniel said that. It was one of the best quotes I heard this year from a coach. Every moment. And that's, because that can be the difference in a game. Whether it happens in the first, the second, the third, whatever that moment is, whether it's a chip play, whether it is, capitalizing when you get the scoring chance, whether it's defending, blocking a shot. And all these teams are here for a reason, and it's. I just think when I look at Dallas and Edmonton, it is going to be a hard-fought series. I think both are, to be honest. I won't be surprised, and I think it would be great for the game if both these conference finals go 7.
What do you think is the best Stanley Cup final that this Final Four could offer?
Oh boy, I love watching Florida play. I just think they're exciting. They're tenacious. They're the style I love. So them against either Dallas or Edmonton, I think would be a fantastic final. Them against Dallas would be an interesting one. Paul Maurice and Pete DeBoer, both coaches, two best friends, grew up coaching together, started their coaching path, stood up in each other's wedding. It'd be interesting to see those two face off against each other.
Lots of cool potential stories there for sure. Last thing before we let you go, Shane, because you like the way Florida plays so well, if they do go to the Cup final again, let's say they win it, is it Sergei Bobrovsky for Conn Smythe, or is there another name that you might target?
Well, right now I think Bobrovsky's the guy. I really do. I think that third line, like Brad Marchand, what he's done at his age, and having played with him as a young guy, he's a type of player. You love him as a teammate, and he has the ability to, especially with his experience, to drag the rest of the guys into the fight, whether it's with his chirping or whether his little antics, and that he fits right into that Panthers kind of mindset. But I think if they're going to win, Bobrovsky has to be the difference. Certainly against Carolina, because Anderson's been great. That could come down to who's the best goalie in that series. Yeah,
Shane, you're awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate your time.
Anytime. I just can't believe Dave got on before me this year, but that's all right. I'll get over it.
Listen. You go on other shows, Shane. You're too cool for me. You got to call the big games. No, I appreciate you.
All right.
Shane
have a great
Hnidy,
day.
back at you, buddy. Follow him on X at Shane Hnidy, HNIDY, and did a great job on the call for that Panther series last round. We are going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, resetting for hour 2 of the program. We've got a lot of baseball coming up. Fred Warner got a deal as well in the NFL. Stick around. More Money Moves after this.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.